for PASA, the 11.5. To date, the board has approved 74 campus positions, 10 non-campus positions. We're including 7.5 teaching contingency. We have the estimated salary increase at the 2%, and we're adding a 2.5 right now, and for the additional transportation costs associated with grandfathering and the feeder pattern changes. So we've talked about these. And so really the new information here is, okay, what would it look like with the revenue we were talking about here? So you can see we broke even in 13-14. We're expecting a small surplus in 14-15. Again, I'm gonna be bringing that number close to zero. At the end of the year, we'd be putting any additional funds we have probably into the technology service fund or some of those funds we don't want to increase our fund balance at this time since we're already over our 3-month amount. Using the Senate Bill 2 projection, with this view, we have cushion of about $5.3 million. So getting to Mr. Rice's point, if you start to project what 16-17 could look like, so my major assumptions are below those numbers. So, I'm here for the current year. I mean, we're projecting this number of students, 1159 additional students. We have the state's CPT with how they're valuing our growth at 10%. We're projecting higher than that at 11.5. So we benefit from that gap of 1.5% we benefit from, and that helps us in our revenue. Well, if we do have that decline in that local value the next year, and we're expecting a decline. Now, how much that is, we don't know. We're expecting that decline. So if that decline was 6.5%, if the state brings up the property values up to 11, that delta right there would actually cost us $10 million in revenue. Okay, we'd have 10 million less the next year. Now, the reason why this number isn't 10 million is because we still have some enrollment growth. Okay, so we have over 5 million in enrollment growth, and here the enrollment growth is 739. So you can see, we're projecting definitely, a number smaller than the current year. I think that's a decent number, and you can certainly ask PASA about those numbers next week when you see them. Okay. So what this tells me is that, if we do get, and I do think that the revenue number is going to be better in 577, as I think you'll see that in the next 2 months. As we are able to make more investments, I think we're going to be having to think more about one-time investments as opposed to recurring investments. We just have to be very cautious in terms of what we want to add to the budget that would be long-term. Okay? Okay, so changing gears a little bit. I flipped the order just on these 2 slides because I wanted to point out something here. Whenever the board adopted the salary increase last year, a lot of discussion was around, okay, so what are you guys doing, in these years here? Do you remember that discussion? Okay, we really pushed up the scale here because of the the data we had on the turnover and other things like that. But so what were we going to do to address this? Because we already were the salary leader up here on the top end of the scale, but we weren't here, and it's something we couldn't afford to fix at that time. So what we're modeling here, again, this is just our initial discussion. We're going to have a discussion about this with the Budget Compensation Committee during the first week of May when we meet with them. But if we were going to bring up our starting pay, just by $500, but here's the main point. Our goal is smoothing the scale for even $500 steps, so we don't have that dip in those years, okay? So if that was the case, if we built it, okay, all right. Okay, so if we built it that way, then we would have salary increases ranging from 1.6% to 3.4%, and you'll see graphically how that works out. The minimum increase would be $1,000, and then you'd have some as you're trying to smooth things out in those years, getting $1,900. So I'm projecting would be the salary leader through year 20 on the scale, depending on what happens with the other districts. And then for the non-teaching employees, we'd be looking at a potential increase of 2% with a total cost at 9.2. So what would that look like in terms of comparing our current scale to what we're going to be talking to the BCC about next time? You can see, we're really trying to smooth things out, and this is where, the folks that are here, I mean, they're moving up a level at the same time as we're moving away from that lower number. Those are the folks that would have the biggest percentage increase, okay? Whereas before, the biggest percentage increases were on this side of the scale, okay? All of the folks where you just see that same slope, they would be getting a $1,000 increase, okay? So that's how that would work out. Again, we'll get feedback from the Budget and Compensation Committee next week. We can't, if we stick with $500, well, then we'd actually be asking these people to come down. And so, that's not going to happen. And so that's why that's not smoothed out at the very top. But we'd be saying that those folks would also still be getting the minimum 1,000. Those step increases are higher than $500 at this time. Okay, so but we can't really smooth it out the whole way yet. Okay?
I have a question.
Sure.
I appreciate you adjusting the teachers with more teaching experience. I think that's a good sign to our teachers, but I just have a suggestion. Talked with a few teachers, and actually this is curriculum department. I've heard from teachers like with 15, 19 years experience that they would like to help. They have suggestions to offer to keep our teachers here that have under 10 years experience. So they feel like they're not being heard. So they appreciate the teacher, the pay increase, but they also have some ideas. I don't know how you can incorporate that, but I can give you specific names. I can email those to you, but I've talked to a number of them. Thanks.
Okay. This shows how our potential scale would compare to the scales of the other three, our three significant competitors. And again, this is, to be fair, this is where they're at in 14, 15. I mean, I've talked to the CFOs of these districts. They haven't gotten as far along in the process in terms of saying, hey, we're looking at 2%. Most of them are saying we have no idea. We're waiting. We're waiting. It's not that we've already had our fare and everything, but we do want to put something out there, and we feel like we can afford long term, a 2% increase. But even if these folks do move up, I still think that there's a good shot that we'll be the salary leader, through the bulk of the scale. Okay. And if I have an update that on next month when we ask you to adopt that, I'll bring that at that time. Anything else on compensation before we move on? Okay. There's other things we'll be bringing forward next time. And we'll give you more detail during the month between now and when we expect a decision to be made. But a number of the departments have enhancements in mind that are not staff related. Just for example, in the police, there's vehicle replacements need to be done. They have more alarm techs, and so more supplies are needed. A lot more overtime is needed for the police because they're being asked to go to more events with more officers per event. That's just some examples. On the special ed side, the cost of contracting is significantly higher. Fine arts wants to work on a program called Art Integration. They have higher transportation costs. There's more for Avid expenses and such. Again, we'll give you much more detail on these. On the maintenance side, we're changing vendors on the lawn care. That cost is going to be going up. Higher cost for waste removal and pest control. Also, we're building in the expenses for utilities for the Madden Elementary. HR, they're looking at a software that will improve productivity throughout the district. There's additional training and technologies, multiple demands. In terms of some of the one-time expenditures, things that we'll be talking about, scoreboards. There's a lot of angst about scoreboards, throughout the district, and we're also going to be looking at, not just the ones at the campuses, but we'll be looking at the ones for the stadiums, and then we'll also, that will also give us some advertising opportunities and things like that. And then also, we want to make sure all the whiteboards are out there that need to be out there, as well as getting, improving the marquees. There's a wide disparity in marquees as you go through the district, and some principals talk to me about, hey, really would like to see something better. And so those are some potential one-time things that we could be bringing. And then from a fund balance perspective, I want to, there'll be some stuff we'll be talking about, perhaps, and I know we mentioned, I think each one of you mentioned you'd like to have a little bit more time, on the side in terms of, getting a refresher on school finance. And so we may be scheduling some things like that. And so we could be talking about, some of the things that we do from a fund balance perspective, making sure we're utilizing our fund balance the best way and not necessarily, hoarding it above the 3-month amount. And so, I have some ideas on that we can be talking about as well. So as far as what's coming, again, you have the some contract recommendation stuff for next meeting. May 11th will be, there'll be a lot there. If we have additional staffing, and that'll be the final pass at that, we'll know a lot more about our financial situation at that time. That'll come then. We mentioned the compensation. We'll be asking the board to approve our compensation proposal then, any of the non-staffing enhancements as well, and then we'll ask the board to take action to call the meeting for the purpose of the proposed tax rate and adoption of the budget. And then we'll have action taken on the 18th with a public hearing on June 1st, with the adoption of the budget on the 15th.
So, just to go back to that slide, so the budget by next month when we see the budget, we'll be seeing more pieces of the budget all together, broken down, and it's very close to final form. Because,
yes, ma'am.
So, for the people who are on their first lap here, you can look forward to that. Okay.
Can I interject something on that?
Yes.
One thing many districts do is they have budget workshops where they're called meetings simply for the budget, and I think this board has done that historically. So we're open to scheduling that additional meeting if the board would like to do that. That's one thing you see is we're sticking pretty much with the regular meeting dates to inform you and update you, but any extra time you need, it might be beneficial to schedule a budget workshop if the board would like to do that. But I just want to make sure you are aware that we're very open to that idea.
We try to meet 51 times a year. Well, I think we kind of looked at the dates and we were struggling a little bit with finding a date that we could meet, because I recall we've already kind of combined a couple of meeting days. So I'm not sure there is a meeting date, but maybe we can try to figure that out or think about that. Mrs. Tossan, do you have a question?
Going back to compensation, the only question I had, and this is teacher pay scales. Are we going to see something similar for like paraprofessionals, aides, people like that are staffed at campuses? Or do we have increases in compensation proposed for that?
Oh, I mean, right now what we're looking at is a potential increase of 2% of the midpoint scales.
For everyone?
Right.
Okay. And can we see, I like your chart. I'm a chart girl. I like your graphs. Can we see a comparison to other districts for that as well?
Oh, for the paras and other things like
And
that?
aides,
Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to see that and see where we are on that.
Okay.
Thank you. And I'll be scheduling a meeting, and whether we have a workshop or not.
All right.
All right, do we have any other questions on any of this? Well, thank you, Mr. Bassett. Thank you, Mr. Villanueva, or Senor, sorry. Say it again?
Close enough.
Villasenor.
Villasenor. There's a lot of vowels that I had to pronounce in that. All right. So now we're ready to convene in closed session under the Texas Open Meetings Act for the purpose of a private consultation with the board's attorney on any or all subjects or matters as authorized by law. We're now convened in closed session.